Member for Dawson. I'm here with the esteemed Dr Daliri, OAM, for his services to the community. Dr Daliri is the Executive Director of the Townsville Intercultural Centre, one of the instrumental people behind the Townsville Cultural Festival, and he also is the author of this fantastic book, The Ghost of the Billabong Speaks. So you all know who I am. I'm the National Party federal member for Dawson, but Farvardin, can you tell a little bit about yourself? You're a migrant to this country,
yes.
But you've made it home now. And
yes, I came as a refugee actually.
Refugee? Yeah. In what year did you come here?
84.
84. Okay, and what country was that from?
Originally I'm from Persia, from Iran.
From Iran.
Yeah.
Why did you have to leave, mate? What were you running from?
Yeah, actually I left Iran about 10 years before I came to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the...
Was it because of the revolution?
It was mainly religious persecution.
Yeah.
Of the people that they were following my belief, which was a Baha'i faith. And then I ended up in India, and then from India I wasn't able to go back to my country after the revolution.
Yeah,
so I had 10 years of India experience, and then from there I was accepted to Australia with my family as a refugee, and we arrived here, yes.
So I've heard about that, the people of the Baha'i faith, which is your faith, are persecuted by the Shia Muslim majority, and
mainly by the government.
Mainly by the government in Iran. Yes. Yeah, right. And that was post the Ayatollah coming to power and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, the trouble has been there all the way, and then the recent deprivation of the members of the community from education and all other forms of suppression is becoming more and more nationally known, internationally known to the international community. That this is not right. People have right to education regardless of what religion they follow, what politics they follow. Yep. So hopefully things will change, and then in the meanwhile we need to celebrate what we have in Australia and try to...
So you come here, what year was it that you got
84.
84. And what's the journey between, just come over a bit, because we're getting out of frame here. We're getting very close here. We're almost sitting on each other's laps to do this. But you're now the Executive Director of the Townsville Intercultural Centre. You have been for as long as I can remember.
23 years now.
Bloody hell, 23 years, mate. They get less for a murder these days. So, but how did you get from refugee, coming to Australia, permanent resident, citizen, to end up here?
Yeah, I just arrived to Tasmania first, and then with my family, my son and then my wife, we settled down in Devonport.
It would have been a bit of a
loved it.
Climate change from
it was great.
Iran to Tasmania.
We loved it, and then it was a change from Indian climate because I was climatized in India.
Right. Yeah.
It was but very soon I fell in love with that place. So then in due course of events, in the pursuit of studies and jobs, I ended up coming to Townsville, where the climate was more like Indian climate, and had a university and had a very vibrant community, and I always looked forward to work somewhere closer to the original inhabitant and the First Nation Aboriginal people, and here I had that opportunity to connect with them, which is a meaningful thing for me.
Yeah, okay. So mate, you're chair of the Townsville Intercultural Centre. You've written this book, as I said, you can go on Amazon and look it up, The Ghost of the Billabong Speaks. I've read most of it, still reading it. I've got to say it is a very, very good read. But it's all about multiculturalism. And mate, I've got to say that my view of multiculturalism, unfortunately, over the years has become a bit jaded, to the point where I have actually gone out and said that I don't know that I support multiculturalism anymore under the guise that it is. Now your book is all about that, and I want to just read one section out of it. that you've written up the back here in page 127, and it hit the nail on the head for me. The central issue, why I feel so aggrieved about the way things have gone. So this is from your book. You say the Australian multiculturalism policy was never intended to go the way of segregated cultural groups, and from the word go was set on the path of integration. Yes. And I agree, it should have been. You said at the heart of the Daliri report, which was this report the government did into multiculturalism back in the 70s, I think it was a pathway for migrants to join the wider community and be accepted as a productive and participating member of the Australian community. Yes, integration. The multicultural narrative was therefore set by the Australian community to empower migrants into their new life in Australia, as opposed to perpetuating their migrant label for their lifetime and even for the next generation. And you say, and you've emphasised it in italics here, it's an important statement to you. Sadly, somehow a few years after the Daliri report in 1978, the word integration was deemed to be a dirty word and politically incorrect. Yes. You go on to say a new migrant service industry, academic discourse and historical narrative was set in motion that did not follow the vision of the report, and as a result of an open-ended multiculturalism, replaced the commitment to integration, that is, cultural groups integrating into the Australian social fabric and contributing to the whole while they feel safe and proud of their heritage. I couldn't have summarised my concerns about the way multiculturalism has gone, and that's why I say I feel bad when I get up and say, look, I don't know that I support multiculturalism anymore, but I support it as you understand it.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't support it as it suddenly has become in these politically correct circles. So tell us about that. What's your view of multiculturalism as it should have been, and what you've seen to be successful, mate?
Yeah, I think the idea of having an accepting nation based on a fair go is coded in the DNA of this nation, meaning that Australian culture, since time of Ned Kelly, since time of the convicts and exiles, settlement and gradual development, since time of indigenous people, this nation was set for giving birth to a new culture which was founded on the idea of fair go and inclusion.
Yep.
This actually is very evident in our history, pre-federation as well as after the federation. Yes, in my book I have discussed that we had British colonial narrative. With that comes all baggage of what happened to indigenous people, and nobody denies that. But then, yet we had a new narrative emerging, which is Australian narrative. And I always give an example. For example, if you look at Slim Dusty's songs and poetry.
I love Slim Dusty, mate.
He tells a story, and every story that he tells is so inclusive, so colourful. Talks about different cultures, different people. He specifically has written songs about Aboriginal people, about reconciliation. We are talking about the time that there was no any money for reconciliation. Even Aboriginal people weren't recognized. So what we are saying here is that the regular Australian community was already ready to accept all those things, and they came up with this idea of a nation.
Voted in 1969 for the Aboriginal people to become citizens again.
Exactly. So and that voting for Aboriginal people to be included in the election, as well as to be given equal opportunities, was voted by Australians, because at that point Aboriginal people weren't able to vote. So it was the Australian cultural narrative, based on its own inspiration of fair go, that they decided that what is happening is wrong and we have got to include Aboriginal people. So same way multiculturalism started.
Yeah. So that's, you see that shift from being the British cultural narrative to this Australian cultural narrative, and I gather from the Australian cultural narrative was the people that were forcibly brought here to this country, convicts and the like.
That's right.
That helped fuse this new sort of national narrative, is how you see it.
Yes, there was a new story emerging, a new struggle for people to make this place of exile, people who have been rejected from their own community back in England, they started building the foundation of the society. And apparently there has been so much collaboration and connection with the Aboriginal people from the beginning. Even the profound example is the Aussie Rule Games, which is inspired by the Mount Crook Aboriginal Games, for example. There was so much give and take between the New Southerners and Aboriginal people at that point. But yet the British colonial narrative stands to be different in terms of justifying their colonial enterprise. That has nothing to do with the pure spirit of Australian culture which emerged, and that starts from Ned Kelly, the Jolly Swagmans, and the Federation, and then go on and on till today. When you look at Australia, is a place that people come from every part of the world, and they're being entitled, equally treated, and respected for who they are. No question asked. And this is what Australia has achieved. I think we should be thankful and grateful for it.
Okay, so someone's just posted something about, you've got comments coming up on the screen there.
Yes.
And I just see someone sort of talking about the initial wave of migrants from the Mediterranean, Greeks, Italians, Maltese.
That's right.
Of course there were others. I mean, South Sea Islanders were sadly, it's a shameful part of the history, blackbirded, basically in some cases captured, kidnapped and indentured. But then we had that sort of Mediterranean immigration. But someone's just sort of said there that something's gone wrong between what happened before with that immigration and what they're seeing today. What's your view on that?
The Daliri report was commissioned by Malcolm Fraser.
Yeah, that's right. So the Daliri report was the report about
investigating how to help
make
migrants to settle better and faster into the community. And since then, a special provision was created by the government to create some of the neighborhood centers, and the migrant resource centers that started being funded to help the transition of the migrants and the settlement in the new home.
Yeah.
And then that was all based on the plan, and later on, as it evolved, then ethnic group emerged, and then the new policies of multiculturalism became focused on development of ethnic organizations, which was not part of the Daliri report necessarily.
Sort of seems to me to be dividing us rather than uniting us. I mean, I know that the people need to retain a sense of their own culture and identity. I have nothing wrong with that, particularly, say, the Greeks, they come here, they wanted to keep the Greek Orthodox religion, they wanted to keep their Greek traditional festivities, but I think that somewhere along the line, as you talked about the sort of ethnic-based industry that sort of established, it sort of was almost like, don't even bother integrating or going into the rest of Australian society. We can have our own thing within Australia and keep it completely ethnically based. Now that's probably very much an exaggeration, but a lot of people do perceive it as that. There's enclaves that have been set up, and I suppose, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that the sort of distortion of that original intention from the Daliri report that you see?
The way I have explained that in my book is that the idea of Australian culture and values and what makes Australia what it is was not well recognized as well as shared around. So that what happens if I come from somewhere else, I come for Australia. That's what I did. I came here for what was here, to start with freedom, democracy, and the ability to stand on equal basis with others and have a chance to make my life. I didn't come here for anything other than freedom, equal respect.
And the Akubra.
And this fellow. And I got that. And then when you come to a new country, it is essential to understand what this country is about.
Yeah.
Who are these people? Why did I choose to come here?
Yep.
Right. And now that I'm here, what is my connection with the baseline, which is the Australian cultural narrative? That is what was missed out.
I've heard you give this analogy of making a pizza. Tell
Yes.
us, do that one. Tell us about
See,
that one.
from what I understand, look, when you look at a pizza, you look at all these nice colors and pepperonis, capsicum and the chili, or all sort of things you see on a pizza base.
I haven't had dinner yet, so you're
Right.
making me hungry a little.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, go on.
So, but yet underneath is a pizza base, and that pizza base is what keeps the pizza together. And the cheese on that definitely gives taste to everything else around it. But yet all those toppings of the pizza are like different cultures, different flavors, but they are all here because of the pizza base. I never argue that the ethnic groups shouldn't exist, cultures as individuals should. They should, as you see on the pizza. But that should stay in connection, recognition, and as well as acceptance of what is at the base. If the base is undermined, if Australian base of the cultural narrative, what hangs us together, what makes us a one unified nation, if that is being undermined, pizza will not hang it together anyway, pizza will disintegrate.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. So
Look, to use a topical example, because someone's mentioned it just before as we're talking,
yeah.
about Yasmin Abdel Magid's
Mhm.
comments around Anzac Day, which I was quite critical of, where she took the phrase "lest we forget" and used it in a very political context, which
Yeah.
most Australians realise you do not politicise Anzac Day, and she tried to compare it to, say, Nauru and Manus Island, talking about the illegal immigrants or the asylum seekers who are
Yeah.
sitting on those
Yeah.
islands. Now,
Yeah.
that was, to my mind, a complete and utter disrespect to a very, very strong, ingrained Australian tradition, a very strong part of our Australian
Yes,
culture,
yes.
one that there's not many things that Australians get angry about.
Yes.
But Anzac Day,
Yeah.
because of the people who died, who sacrificed their lives,
Yes.
they do get angry about it.
That's
What's your take on that, Farvardin?
See, for me, Anzac Day, and there are many other Australian cultural icons, that they ought to be respected, no question asked. You don't question what it is or why should we respect it, you simply respect. By the same token that we expect every other culture to be accepted and respected,
Yep.
Anzac Day also needs to be respected, no question asked, no judgment made, and let it be. And if you're not celebrating or marching or joining the parade, that's nobody's going to ask you to come. You have to. But the minimum is that we have a sense of respect and reverence towards what the majority of this nation is busy doing, and that's part of our local culture. That's Australian culture. That's my take. And there should be no other word about it. There should be no discussion that Anzac Day is part of Australian cultural heritage, has to be respected, accepted as it is, with no words around it. That's my position, and I stay on that. I've written a few articles about it since last few years ago, and then there was even a research published somewhere along the line that the Anzac celebration may not be inclusive of the Turkish community aspirations, and that made a headline. I straight away made an article. I wrote an article and was published partly that Anzac is Australian thing. We got to respect it and accept it, and we are in Australia. End of the story. No discussion.
So look, I'm going to go to the Townsville Multicultural Fair.
Yes,
You are
yes.
pivotal in organising, and then we'll get on to the hot issue. And I see there's people who are writing up here wanting to talk about Islam. So we'll get on to that last, but because that's the controversial issue, I suppose. But tell us about the Townsville. Is it
Cultural Fest?
Cultural Fest.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cultural Fest still going today. How many years has it
Yes,
been going?
23 years we did this festival. We never used multicultural.
Yep.
Term multicultural from the day one by the community, by the cultural group themselves. When we consulted, they said, look, we don't want to use multicultural festival. Why? Because as soon as we use it, that excludes our Aussie mates. We have to say culture, open-ended, everybody welcome.
all cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that level, we did that for the last 22 years, but our experience is that the way that we are doing this is for bringing the whole community together. We recognize from Ned Kelly, you have seen some of our art feature, to this Jolly Swagman, Slim Dusty, our Aboriginal heritage, newly arrived, cultural niceties, emerging communities, till newly arrived communities from Somalia. They're all included.
Yeah.
This vision is a true version of what multiculturalism should about. A point of all coming together, respecting this land and the Aboriginal people and the Australian culture, and celebrating with respect every other single culture. Doesn't matter what they are, who they are. This is Australia. That is what Australia has achieved, and this is what we should be also proud of it. So, but what I have discussed in this book is that government policies do not necessarily support this type of the festival, meaning that when Townsville Cultural Fest puts their hands up for support, they are missing out in comparison to ethno-specific events and special pressure group events.
See,
so
this is the way it's going.
Exactly, right.
It should be about trying to bring people together.
Exactly.
People talk about this unity in diversity.
Yes.
But yet we seem to just want to have diversity in diversity.
And this again brings the backbone of the festival is Australian people. They come to the gate, pay their $15, enable us to pay our bills and set up this massive festival for everybody to enjoy, and our dependency on government support is diminishing. This year our festival budget is around $350,000. Our only supporting budget is $20,000 from the state government, meaning that in comparison to what we achieve, we are almost getting next to nothing.
All right. Well, I'm glad we're talking, because we'll go and see if we can find some funding to assist you federally in that putting on. But just keeping on the topic of the cultural fest. Your book, you write a lot about it in the book.
That's
the lessons from it.
That's right.
You've outlined some of it, but what is the of all those years that it's been running, what's been the highlight of the results of the festival?
In past 23 years, at least 2 generations of young Australians, people from different cultures, from all different religions, have experienced what it means to come together on Australian land. What it means to connect to Aboriginal people and the mainstream and the Aussie mates and the newly arrived refugee. What is the magic? And that we produce. And those people have been into the festival. They are now supporting the festival. Those kids have grown up now. They come back to the festival with their families. They support it. They're happy to come in and bring their mates to it. And then we have given the ownership of the multicultures back to the mainstream community, saying, look, this is yours, this is ours. Multiculturalism, whatever it is an Australian thing. It is not an imported material. Without Australia, there is no multiculturalism. Other than what we have in Australia, which allows all of us, with all this diversity, hanging together with safety, with dignity and respect and freedom. This is a very special thing. I would like to see that this festival has made that so, realized by Australian friends that, look, this is your festival. Multiculturalism, whatever it is your production. It is Australian thing.
So let's get on to that controversial topic I said. Now, mate, I'm verbal in the media as being anti-Islam, but
yeah.
I reject that. I'm not. In fact, a while ago, a group in a regional town, I won't go into details, but contacted me wanting me to speak at a rally because there was a mosque that was going to be established in their community and they didn't want it. And I said, well, no. Let's look. Myself and as a society, we fundamentally believe in religious liberty, freedom of religion.
Yes.
And I don't want government or anyone else coming in and saying you can't build a place of worship, because where does that stop? So I'm not into that. People have the right to believe whatever they want to believe. When it comes to faith, the issue that I have, and it's very different from being anti-Muslim or even anti-Islam. Let me just say, people can be critical of any religion they want.
Exactly.
I mean, a religion is a belief system.
Yes.
It's very much in our society, in our Western secular society, open to deconstruction and criticism. And I've got to tell you, every day of the week you see that happening with Christianity.
Exactly.
So, I don't knock the people who want to be critical of Islam, but that's not my bag. My bag is radical Islam, the sort of ideology of Islamism, and these radical elements of it. This belief that we want to impose the religious laws of Sharia on the rest of society. And there are groups, for instance, Hizb ut-Tahrir. They are a very radical group. They've been banned recently in Indonesia, a majority Muslim nation. And this is but one of the groups that's trying to push Sharia law in Australia. And this is, I suppose, why people get upset about multiculturalism, because they hear this, they see it as symptomatic of modern multiculturalism. Even to me, and this is probably pushing the envelope, the burqa, for instance. I know on one hand people say you should be able to wear whatever you want, but a lot of Muslims tell me this is not actually in the Quran or any hadiths or anything like that. This is a cultural thing from Middle East, which originated in basically sexist, very sexist sort of beliefs. That if I as a bloke saw a woman uncovered, I'd suddenly go crazy and want to copulate with her. I mean, that's insanity. We reject that sort of view as a modern nation. So and there's other things I see with the burqa, the safety issue and all the rest of it. But a lot of people have these sort of concerns, which I think, and a lot would disagree with me, are mainstream concerns, without saying that they're going to they hate Islam. Being against radical Islam is different from being against Islam. Radical Islam, how do you see this multicultural narrative, multicultural Australian narrative you talk of, dealing with radical Islam, Islamism that wants to overthrow these things that you talk about at the start of the book? You talk about, Aussie culture is fused with egalitarian aspirations and the idea of a fair go for all. It is imprinted with the joyful dancing of the swagman with Matilda, erected on the bedrock of the uncompromising call from Ned Kelly for social and economic justice, decorated with the blood, sweat and tears of its inhabitants, and crowned with progressive values of gender equality and social justice. That is a great summary of Australia and its values. But yet we've got this foreign ideology in radical Islam that seeks to overturn that and supplant it with something else.
See, Islam is a religion.
Yes.
There are many other religions. And with religion comes families, children born into it. It becomes part of the culture, part of the psyche. We have Hindu people, we have Jewish people in Australia, we have atheist people. Imagine a young girl and a Muslim boy are watching TV. They have come just from the refugee camps after 10 years of being kept there somewhere in Africa. They have come to Australia as a refugee, and they have found their peaceful home, and they have been running from some of those atrocities that you were just talking about. Right? Some of those extremes, they are the one that they have seen and they have run away from, ended up here. Imagine they're watching TV and somebody now on TV talking about Muslims are bad people. What do you think happens to those children? They'll get traumatized again and again and again. They don't know how our system works, because back home where they come from, somebody picked a sword and threatened them. They had to run for their life for years. As soon as they see a threatening voice coming, they get the same feeling.
Would that be threatened though by the fact that if they run away from this sort of extremist interpretation of their religion, and then come to Australia and find extremists here in Hizbut Tahrir, and that's spouting the same thing?
That is one side of it. What they don't see that through the TV, through the media, when they see that so-called the emotions against Islam, when it is put, and Muslims, and when it is generalized, a lot of people get threatened. A lot of people get the fear, right? And the nation is being divided. Now we've got to look at the history again. If it wasn't for the Afghan camel riders, we didn't have the Gang Express. We didn't have so much that happened because of the so many Muslims from Afghanistan came here. They even built a small mosque around the country. They're part of our heritage. They're before the Federation.
Yeah, that's right. We got a lot of Malaysian Muslims in Mackay.
So participation of the Muslims as such in building Australia as a new nation is not a new thing.
No.
So with what you're saying about the Sharia law, extremism, all those things, is one side of the issue. But the other side of the issue, we have by and large a huge Muslim community, relatively, that there are people that they're born in their religion. They didn't have any choice but being Muslim, and they're here just going their way and practicing their 5-time prayers and all. It is not fair to be labeled as a whole, as a general community, and whenever we do that, we are bound to hurt some people. That is not an Australian thing. Just because of the label that's put to them. However, if we truly believe in what Australian culture is, if we truly celebrate what Australia offers, right, in terms of our freedom, in terms of our laws, and if we celebrate that, if we say this is what Australia is, if you're from wherever, whatever orientation you come to this nation, if we really celebrate us as Australia, with what we offer to people as a lifestyle, that is enough to guarantee that Australia will continue to be as a young, inclusive, progressive and free country. But as soon as we start shifting our focus from one community to the other and to the other, this is not an Australian thing. So I'm not saying that Australian laws should be muddled with any culture. No, not at all. I'm saying that Australian law should not be affected by any culture which comes here other than what is legislated by the majority. This is our hope for future. And Australian democracy is a decent one, is one of the best ones, and every migrant wishes only that this democracy to thrive, to continue, to flourish. I don't think that people come from somewhere else to Australia, they have run away from dictators who don't appreciate democracy. So, but what I've argued in my book is that we really need to bring about recognition of Australian cultural base, which is pure democracy, freedom, acceptance, as well as gender equality, as well as social justice commitments that we have. And we try to make people realize that, look, this is us. Everyone who comes here, they come for this. And this should be good enough for everybody. No, you say whichever prayer you like, or you don't say any prayer at all, right? But this is what we have on offer. And whatever nicer stuff you bring, or whatever things that you think is right for you, that's also accepted. But that only fits into our society if it's compatible with our democratic rule of law. And I think this is how we talk about it, not about one particular group.
So let me rephrase or put something to you that I hope is sort of what you're saying here, that someone who comes to this country who has a fundamental belief that Sharia law should be the law of the land, I suppose that they are, to use your pizza base analogy, are wanting to strip the pizza base out and have something completely different. So they're acting not in accord with the what you would see as the fundamental tenets of Australian multicultural, the Australian multicultural narrative. Because I know you said something before. You said that you don't think that there would be migrants, but I've got to tell you, unfortunately there are. We know that there are certain groups, certain migrants, certain areas where in Western Sydney and in other places where people are unfortunately practicing and living out this radical interpretation of Islam and seeking to change Australian society towards that.
And there are also many Muslims that they are against that.
Obviously, there are. There is vastly more Muslims
exactly
that are against that, opposed to that. They've run away from that.
In every ideology, in every religion, there are a majority that they are basically okay with everything, and there is always a minority that they want to go to the extreme. So the only point that I'm offering here is that let us not make a generalized statement that makes that majority uncomfortable, makes them feel that they are not accepted. And if there are rules, there are provisions that deals with anything which is threatening Australia from any form of extreme action, and that has to do its job, and they do their job. But none of those provisions that the government puts in place to protect Australia against any extreme action, none of them are about drumming up, making general statement. It is about isolated situation that they need to be under control. But if you ask the Muslim community, by and large, they're the one that they actually agree with all those things that you want to say. That is the point that we need to understand here.
You said, look, I don't disagree with what you've said. There's certainly a minority. I believe that the majority of Muslims are peace loving, but I think that there is. I got to from data that I've seen from the Pew Research Foundation that into religion. They say that there is, throughout the Muslim world, and I would presume these figures would translate into Australia as well, a sizable minority. It's not just like, some people say 1%. It's more than that have these sort of fundamentalist extremist beliefs. And I suppose that the ideology inspires the terrorism. Now, I could go to an extreme Catholic. They would go to a Latin Mass church, pray the rosary every day, and maybe protest outside an abortion clinic. They don't try to strap bombs on themselves, stab people, or take a cafe hostage and shoot people. So there is a very big difference in the extremism and the actions out of the extremism, and I think unfortunately it's more sizable than what we would like to see. Having said that, I agree with you that the vast majority of Muslim Australians are peaceful, law-abiding people who accept what you say, that this nation's offered them democracy, rights, stuff that wasn't in existence in their home country. But how do we deal with this emerging threat without offending the majority? How do we deal with that?
So there are institutions for those things. It's not just about one particular group. There are institutions to deal with any act of extreme which goes against the constitution and rule of law in this country, right? And those institutions are supposed to be supported and to do their job, right? And if somebody does something against the rule of law, right, regardless of the religion, they need to be brought to justice. And so there is no argument against that. What is Australian law? We know. What is Australian provisions? We know it. We need to celebrate who we are as a nation. We need to give confidence to everyone that this nation can flourish and become a model for the rest of the world in terms of what we have achieved so far. And we have incorporated Muslims into this country before federation. They are part of our heritage. They have continued to be part of this inclusive culture. And Australian culture itself is so vibrant, has got so positive energy that everything which comes towards us, they become automatically, attracted to what Australia is. Now, it is not in keeping, it's not compatible with Australian spirit and culture to make others uncomfortable in a blanket statement.
Yep.
Now, I don't want to talk about any particular group. You say anything about anybody as a blanket statement.
Yeah.
Look, George, I see you as a person, I have a contact with you, I have my own judgment about you, and I respect you for who you are without having to listen to anybody who says, oh, George, that George is, why would I listen to media about who you are?
Mm.
If I know who you are, or I want to know you from my contact with you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you like me to go and check the media quotations about you
Yep.
and make that a basis of knowing
course.
you? So
Of course.
this is the same thing applies here. All I'm saying is that let's not make a judgment about people that we don't know personally.
Mm-hmm.
And let's make contact, let's see people, let's just talk to them. And of course, this country, then there are legal provisions, are protective agencies. They are not going to let go any act of potential terrorism because of the banner of religion. So these are the things that we have got to separate, and we have to start approaching all these things. I want to know, George, based on my relationship, my friendship with you, and I respect you as a great guy. I don't care what newspapers talks about you, and this is Australian spirit.
So do talk about it, I've got to say. But look, let me just one sort of final chop at this issue. Take the people out of it. Let's talk about the ideology as opposed to the religion.
Yes.
The religion's fine. The extremist ideology, to me, it ends up sparking the violence. And if we let it go unchecked, then the illegal activities happen. So, I mean, to me, we know that that's cause and effect. The extremism, if left unchecked, will lead to violent outcomes, will lead to terrorism. We see that evidenced every week, sadly, around the world. How do we, I know what you said before, if anyone conducts an illegal act, well, the authorities deal with it. But do we just wait until the illegal act, which could kill a lot of people? Or is there something we can do that's not going to, because let me just segue for a second. I say something about radical Islam, everyone goes bananas because they haven't heard the word radical. They've just said, oh, you're targeting Muslims again. And it's like now we can't have this conversation about radical Islam because we're going to offend, the 80-90% or whatever.
I don't see it as offending.
So but how do we have that conversation? How do we actually do something, Farvardin?
I see it as a
You're in
human
this space,
thing.
so how would you, if I come to you, I said, Farvardin, here's the sheriff badge, you're going to deal with extremism in Islam in this country, what would you do?
My talk is not about offending people. My talk is about being compassionate towards those who are innocent, they're not guilty of anything, they happen to have a religion, and the religion is like any other religion, welcome and respected, be it Jewish or Muslim or Christian. This is at the human level that we have to look at it that way. And then anything I say about Jewish community should not make any one single Jewish person uncomfortable. If I make any one single Jewish person uncomfortable, nothing is worth saying, because I have actually gone against what makes us Australia. Having said that, doesn't mean that people do something wrong should get away because you have a particular religion. See what I'm saying? There are two different things. They should not be mixed up. And by mixing them up unnecessarily, without any productive outcome, we are making a whole lot of people scared, uncomfortable, divided. And then this is not the Australia that we fought for. This is not the Australia that our great-grandfathers they wanted to be. But yet we want a strong Australia. We want a unified Australia. And the only thing which makes us unified is rule of law, our democracy, freedom of speech, as well as celebrating who we are and recognizing Australian cultural heritage. And this cultural heritage I'm talking about is the magic. is the uniting glue. And anyone comes from anywhere, any part of the world, they should realize that, look, there is a culture here. We have Aboriginal culture here. We have also Australian heritage here. These are the ones that we got to be mindful and respectful of. And with that, everybody who has whatever religion and culture they have, they should be accepted as they are. Now, if we base our argument on possibilities, look, anybody can go crazy. An atheist can go crazy.
Yeah.
And pick up a gun and shoot people. Now, on what basis I can say that all the atheists are going to give us a trouble because if you don't believe in God and you can do this again, that it's not possible to do that. It is not productive to make a stereotypical judgment about any group of people.
But people that hold extremist beliefs that we know to be extreme beliefs, I mean, that's where I'm probably differing from you a bit.
See, look at, I had a Muslim friend yesterday talking about, he's a Muslim, right? Straight away he said, look, what George calls extremism, that's exactly what I don't like either. So I'm saying with the George along those lines.
Excellent.
So
I'd hug that guy.
No,
that's great.
Now, and then, see, the point is this, that we just can't make a judgment based on what people believe. Yeah. That's the problem. If we make that judgment, we are going to offend, not just offend, we are going to hurt as well as make a lot of people actually traumatized because themselves they don't agree with some of those things that you talk about. But media and political platforms, they should not be used to make those type of stereotypical statement. But how about we talk about how good is Australia? That's the way to go. How about to say how we can all add up, contribute to Australian progress, and that makes us a stronger community. That makes the Christian and Muslim and Jew and atheist come and say, look, this is the country that we want to stand by and fight for. Yeah. And I think that this is a real patriotism that we win everybody in, not by putting them aside and fight for your own survival in Australia, by letting them in to join in and encouraging people to share and add to the unified fabric of Australia. And this is my take in this book. What I have been concerned about is that whenever we talk about Australian culture, all the nicest stuff that I came for, people say, oh, we don't have a culture. And I'm saying, what? You don't have a culture? This is the culture that gave me my real home, my second chance to be alive. And how come you say I don't have a culture? Yeah. Just because you don't have these things around your neck and don't have that, you think that culture has got to do with only these things? Australian culture has got to do with our mindset, our values, our commitment to each other, our egalitarian approach to the underdog, to one who is suffering, to covering our social, economic bottom line. Nobody should starve and go hungry. This is our culture. Nobody should feel excluded. Nobody should be traumatized. Nobody should be treated, with disrespect. This doesn't come from where I come from. I didn't bring this here.
Yeah.
This was here. This was here from time of Netkeli, from time of Federation. This is engraved in the story of this Jolly Swagman and the Waltzing Matilda. This is what we are here about. So I'm passionate about that. And I think that the more we talk about what is good about Australia, the more we have chances of bringing everybody to do the right thing for this young nation. And I feel very strongly that Australia can rise as a model for the rest of the world and shows them this is how it's done.
And a lot of this is contained in your book, Farvardin,
yes.
The Ghost of Billabong Speaks.
Yeah.
It's available on Amazon.
Yes.
You can download it for Kindle or
Amazon Kindle,
Amazon Books
as well. Amazon Australia, yes.
If you want to say anything about the book now in particular as we wrap up?
Yeah, this is my contribution to make Australian culture visible. The reason that I said the ghost of Billabong speaks is because Australian culture, like the ghost of the Jolly Swagman in the Billabong, has become invisible. And because it is invisible, it is not being celebrated the way it should be. I think that the ghost of Billabong speaks, I thought that I'm speaking of what the ghost wants to say. Look, we have a culture, it is unique, it is inclusive, it is the best thing that has happened to me in my life. I think Australian people, by and large, are the most accepting, most adapting, most respectful people in the world that I know. And then that is all because of the Jolly Swagmans and our history, the way we have built this nation. So this book is a form of a dedication to Australia, and also an attempt to make Australia more unified, more achieving more, rather than we step back and try to drift. And I see the key strategy has to be, first of all, let's see who we are as Australians. If I come from overseas here and I want to make my home here, I need to know why I come here. I need to know how did it arrive here, and how can I add on to it? How can I participate? How can I make it better?
Not how to change it.
And what it is best, I think. Why should I change it? Why should anyone wants to change this?
Well, look, thank you very much, Farvardin. This is, as I said, The Ghost of the Billabong Speaks, the book that Dr Dr Daliri, OAM, has written, available on Amazon. If you want to go and download it on Kindle or get a hard copy.
And I'll have to say that this is this guy, is what is about what I am happy about Australia. Look, he wants to talk to me. He knows that I may not agree with what he is saying, but he is giving me the honor of talking to him face to face, engage here with friendship. This is what Australia is about.
That's right.
And this is what makes me humbled. And this is what I want to keep going.
Good. Well, I'd love to.
And that is what we need. We have to recognize the goodness. Regardless of your views, you're allowing me to talk to you. You want to have a dialogue. You want to explore it. You want to question it. Yet we stay mates, and this is unique magic of Australia. Yeah. Let's love it. Let's do whatever we can to make more of it.
That's right. Well, thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Farvy.
Thank you.
Pleasure,
Thank
mate.
you.
And
thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone,
Good
for
on you. Thank you.
listening and tuning in. And we'll try and do something like this again on a regular basis.
And come to the Cultural Fest, Townsville, in August.
The Townsville Cultural Fest in August. What's the date?
9 to 13 of August.
9th to the 13th of
At
August.
the James Cook University.
There you go. So if you want to come and experience something great up here, come along. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you.